it's time to give away the Wilier Verticale. But before we do, I want to talk about what we learned from this project. If you want to skip all that and get straight to the raffle, the links are all down below. Now, what did we learn from this? Because this was a project that we put out there as sort of the process that you guys might go through when you're putting together your own dream build. And the emphasis was on invest in the things that you're going to have for a long time, 5, 10 years, the frame and the wheels. Those are the things that really affect the performance and the handling. And then we tried to just get the bike operational, the most cost-effective way possible. And then we treated ourselves to upgrades throughout the ownership of the bike and came up with this. Now, we presented this as like all 3 steps put together as one, but then invited your comments, and the comments on it were absolutely brilliant. Some of you agreed with our choices, some of you definitely didn't agree with our choices. We've ridden it a few times, a few of our customers have been up to ride it. It's still in absolutely pristine condition, and we're going to take it for one last ride before we give it away. So, what did we learn? The first thing was the actual type of frame that it is. Now, this is their climbing bike, essentially. It goes up against like the Specialized Atheist has got added, the Colnago V5 RS. It's what they give to the Pro team, the Groupset team, to go alongside their Aero bikes, things like the Falante and the Y1 RS. It's there as an option for the team to have on those really big Alpine days. What we've been seeing, that's not often the case. It's very rare that these lightweight bikes actually come out and get used in a race situation, because now the weight of Aero bikes is coming down and people seem to prefer the handling and the aerodynamics of the Aero bike. The people that are buying these, I think, tend to, one, enjoy the low weight, but also just like the more regular shape of the bicycle, I think. You don't get the big Aero tube. It doesn't look like a spaceship. It looks like a regular bike. And I always feel like the people that buy into this just like a bicycle to look like a bicycle should, and not like it's a jet fighter plane or something. So this was a super lightweight frame. They do a lighter weight version with the stripped back paint, etc. This was like literally the top of the range paint job, this beautiful deep satin and gloss Hulk green, they call it. They went to town on the paintwork. I mean, this paint job adds another £1,000 to it. And most of that is because you get the color matched handlebar and everything. I mean, it is beautiful to look at. It really is stunning. Now, the other thing that really affects the performance and handling of any bicycle is the wheels. What we did here, we went for the DT Swiss, the ARC 1100s. This was DT Swiss's first foray into using carbon spokes. And that was pretty controversial, remember. DT Swiss are famous for making their own spokes. They have done for years and years. For them to go to a carbon spoke made by Venoa was like way out there. But they wanted to do it in a way that addressed all the concerns that this channel and others have been bringing up. And that is that carbon spokes really don't have that elasticity. So you've really got to make sure that the rim was always designed for having carbon spokes from the start. So they really built up the rim to make sure that they weren't going to compress. And that really has improved the handling of the wheel, especially under braking. Now, they're using a modified version of the DT Swiss 180 to really strip the weight down. And then they really went to town to look at, what are the characteristics of a climbing wheel? Sure, you want it to be lovely and lightweight for the ascents, but you've also got to feel confident and enjoy the descents. So they still gave it a little bit of aerodynamics, just going to like a 42, I think, rim depth, a little bit narrower than we're potentially used to, and then built some comfort in there with the Grand Prix 5000 and a 28 on the back, but then kept the weight nice and low with a Aero 26 on the front. Because really, rubber is probably one of the heaviest things, and you can't really make it any lighter, and that's all rotational weight. So it makes sense that for a real climbing bike, because you're going to have relatively skinny tires on there. So we're going to talk about that when we go out for the ride review. So those two things, your two big investment pieces, sorted. Once you've got that, now you want to make it into a full bike ride. You want to get out and ride the thing. And at the time, Shimano are just offering the best value when it comes to group sets. They're fairly old right now, which means that they're on mega sale. So Ultegra, this is going for around £1,200 in the UK. And weirdly, 105 isn't that much cheaper. It's only about £350 cheaper. But to go upgrade all the way to Dura-Ace is a big step up. It's about £600 to £700 more. So we went for the Shimano Ultegra Groupset and then modified a few things, assuming that that's what you'd probably do. Get the benefit of the big cost savings, get it all on there, get it working, get your first couple of seasons under your belt, and then upgrade things as you go. Now, when we upgrade, we didn't want to just like throw money at making things lighter and lighter and lighter and trying to shave off 5 grams here. We wanted to make sure that our upgrades were going to make the bike better as well as just lighter. So the very first thing that we did was change the brake calipers. Now, the Ultegra brake calipers are a 2-piece design. The Dura-Ace goes to a 1-piece, but Hope and a few other brands actually make third-party ones which are now compatible with mineral and dot fluid, and you lose a lot of weight, but you also gain in braking performance. The calipers are all 1 piece, they tend to be stiffer. These particular ones are 4-pot, so you get a really large pad. So we could have got lighter again by going to the 2-pot version. But we're thinking, well, we don't have alpine descents here. We have Lake District descents, so like 20–30% gradients. So we wanted to really improve the steep downhill braking. Something like the Rhino's Pass, which is the top section of that, is so steep. You can nearly always smell and hear your brakes cooking. So something that's really going to dissipate heat and work well. And those are a brilliant upgrade. Famous for a long time in cyclocross circles, brilliant. Now, you guys suggested that they should be matched with the Galfer Rotors, and they seem to be working fine, to be fair. I don't think you save a load of weight by doing that. They definitely still get hot. I still think the Shimano Rotors handle heat dissipation better, so I'm not sure that I would stick with that upgrade again. The other thing we did, the easiest way of losing weight, is to switch to a Dura-Ace cassette. Remember, the Dura-Ace cassette is like a composite carrier, and the top 6 sprockets are made out of titanium as well. So you lose the majority of the weight from an Ultegra to a Dura-Ace crankset is actually in the cassette. So it makes the logical sense because it's going to wear out anyway. So the next time it wears out, it's just to upgrade it. Same goes with the chain, and we made sure we waxed that chain as well. Now, a few of you suggested that we could have changed the cage here to go for a composite one as well. Just literally taken the cage off a Dura-Ace mech. You can buy that part separately. We didn't do that actually. We didn't think that the weight savings was worth it. We went to the Hope jockey wheels though. Just looks nice. It didn't make any difference whatsoever. I don't think to either the friction in the drivetrain or necessarily, you know, the weight savings, but it looks nice. And sometimes that's a good enough upgrade, right? Now the bottom bracket, we just went for the standard Dura-Ace plastic bottom bracket. It's like 50 quid, cheap as chips, works really well, and it's solid. And if it doesn't last very long, it was only 50 quid. Now you could get better ones and trying to reduce that friction, but there was so much debate as to whether that was worth it when you consider that the Dura-Ace ones are so cheap and so easy to replace. So we've kept that in. I think quite a lot of you agreed. The crankset, this definitely sparked up some debates, because if you spend any time on AliExpress, you will see a multitude of companies making carbon cranksets out there on a massive range of prices as well, from like ridiculously cheap to probably no cheaper than what you can get from a more Western brand. And the best thing to do here is refer to the experience from Luke over at Trace Velo. We have just started working with Magen. They've now got a UK distributor, so UK insurance, UK liability, and I've been enjoying using that, to be fair. I'm going to do a better review on that later. They only really do a power meter version, so if you just want it for pure weight savings, you don't get the really big chunky 100-gram weight savings. But if you also want to add a power meter, it's a really good viable option alongside what you're getting from SRAM. It definitely beats what's coming from Shimano as well. Now, up at the shifters, we did one tiny little upgrade, and the little clamp that holds this on, we switched that to the Dura-Ace version, which is titanium. Again, the only real weight saving that comes from the shifters is from that little replaceable part. So little titanium clamps in here. And we've gone for the Pro Logo 3D tape. I actually really love this tape. I know it looks weird, but in this context of going uphill and you're sweaty and you're trying really hard, you get such good grip. And when you're coming back down the other side and you're holding on, it's just, I know it looks weird. I know it's not to everyone's taste, but it performs really, really well. So it is what it is. Now, the saddle, we went for the Repente saddle on a titanium rail. At the time, I didn't have the 7x9 clamps for the seat post. So this is about the lightest one I could find with the titanium rails. I quite like it. It's quite a stiff saddle. It works well when you're going uphill and you're seated and you're putting a lot of effort through the system. I don't think it's the most comfortable saddle for really long distance stuff, but in this context, I think it works. It works great. Realistically, what would we change? Well, the front tyre, I do think I would at least go to a proper 28mm. The Aero tyre was great. I just think that 28s would have been better on there. I don't think there's a massive benefit to going to the 26. It's probably going to add 20, 30 grams worth of weight, but I can see why they did it, to try and get that absolute ultimate weight down. But I think that's probably going to be the first thing you probably change. And then that crankset, would you really change that crankset? You see, there is something nice about having everything matching. And as much as those carbon cranks that you see on AliExpress, they might be super light, they don't look particularly pretty. And I personally haven't really found something that I think just looks as nice that would suit the rest of the bike that shaves any sort of significant weight. I'm really open to your ideas, but yeah, those big fat Eli cranks and Magen cranks, they save some weight, but let's face it, they're not a good looking bit of kit. And then of course the whole Shimano thing, you know, you'd have to go right the way up to like SRAM Red or like a slightly modified SRAM Force to get the weight down as close as this. And you could argue that you get some more hill climbing orientated gear ratios depending on your personal power output. With the Shimano, you're pretty limited with 34, 34. So SRAM at least gives you some more options there. I mean, right now, Campag would probably be the ultimate choice because their gear ratios are so comprehensive. But the problem is they don't really have anything that came in anywhere close to this sort of money. So maybe when they launch Chorus to the market, hopefully next year, they'll have something that will compete with this like £1,200 price point. Whether they can still match it for price, who knows? But 2027 is going to be an interesting year because we are expecting the new Dura-Ace. That's been fairly delayed, and we might see the new Ultegra at the same time. Remember, we have seen 2 releases of GRX and 2 releases, even 3 releases, I think, of the mountain bike stuff all in the same year as well. So we could see a complete refresh of that all in 1 year. So God knows what they're going to do with the pricing and where that's all going to sit. Now, before I hand this over to you guys, I want to take it for one last ride because there's still one thing that's really bothering me, and that is the whole aero bike or climbing bike, or is there still a scope for what's just a general purpose road bike? I mean, don't mean a all-road, I don't mean an endurance bike, just a solid, reliable 73 degrees, standard looking road bike that doesn't need to look like a spaceship or be so light and so fragile that you just get anxious every time you ride it. Let's go talk about that outside. First most important job of a climbing bike is when it gets steep, you need to be able to sit down and feel like all of your energy is going into forward momentum. Happy to report that's absolutely the case. Plenty of stiffness. To be honest, most bikes are. Where they really fail is when you get out of the saddle and start putting some load through the handlebars and that steerer tube. Oh, yep, looks good. Here's the thing, if you're into buying a really lightweight bike, I implore you, go to a shop and put some effort through the handlebars. If you're looking at a Specialized, whatever it is, lean on the handlebars. If you can get them to flex, walk away, because you are not going to enjoy climbing out of the saddle or descending if those handlebars are so light that either the handlebars or the steerer tube flexes. Steerer tube normally flexes are, it got steep again, because all the plastic fittings are compressing. These are solid. Look at that. What do I think? Well, this bike is almost a kilo lighter than my Time Skylon, even with those Chris King Princeton wheels that you saw. And you do notice a little bit on the accelerations, you know, when you want to put a little bit of effort in, it definitely gets going a little bit quicker. But once you settle into your rhythm, you just can't tell the difference really. It's also about 600 grams lighter than the Wilier Verticale, with all that super record gorgeousness on it. So look, it doesn't suit how I ride. I tend to do longer distance stuff, hills when I want to. I'm not a very out of the saddle, dance on the pedals type of rider. If you are, I totally get why you love that feeling of just out of the saddle and the bike just lurching forwards. But where do you draw the limit with that? How light is too light? I think we're getting pretty close to this. I think we're getting pretty close here. But all of the stiffness that I expect is there, just not as much as I'm used to with the Verticale and the Skylon. I mean, it's downhill where it really matters for me. I just want all that ultimate confidence. Saving a few seconds on the uphills, those days, 20 years behind me at least. It is a relatively fast descent, you can see quite a lot, and the wind is blowing through this open set of fields, and yeah, there's just not enough aerodynamics to really make this bike feel super confident. I was pulling on the brakes there, where I just wouldn't do normally with a more stable aero bike. I'm going to stop here before it gets too dirty. I'm going to go back, give it a wipe down. If you want to enter the raffle, it's £5 a ticket, super short. You could be riding this within 3 weeks. Anywhere in the UK, we'll deliver it. If you live somewhere really cool, I might even hand deliver it. Anywhere in Europe, we'll deliver for whatever it costs. Anywhere outside of Europe, I'm sorry, the shipping is just too complicated for something as precious as this. This is at least a £10,000 bike when brand new, so someone is going to be a very, very lucky and proud owner of this beautiful bike.